Broadcasting from the commodity capital of the world, Zurich, Switzerland, this is Insider's Guide to Energy.
Insider's Guide to Energy, ETRM mini-series, brought to you by Fidectus, where post-trading matters, and Falls and independent management and consulting boutique, creating impacts for clients and markets.
Welcome to Insider's Guide to Energy, educational mini-series on ETRM. This week we're proud to have with us Molecule, and I have Soleja from Molecule with us. Samir, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, we're excited to have you. As you're aware, we're doing this ETRM mini-series with many ETRM vendors across the industry. No questions have been pre-shared, and we're going to just have a discussion with you today about what your opinions are, share what Molecule is doing, and then we'll go to a speed round at the end where we ask you the same 10 questions that we've asked every other participant of the ETRM mini-series. So you ready to go?
Can't wait.
Well, fantastic. So I will start out by getting a little bit of market perspective. So one of the things that I noticed, and those listening to the mini-series have heard me ask this many times before, is that ETRM is getting to be a crowded space. There seems to be a lot of new vendors. There seems to be a lot of legacy vendors trying to reinvent themselves. And there just seems to be a lot of smoke around ETRM. And maybe from your perspective, you can share with us, the audience, why that is, or if you even believe that, and what's happening to get all this attention focused on ETRM.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's really two big things. One, we're seeing the leading edge of the beginning of a commodity super cycle. And I think it's attracting investment from people who are interested in things like power and renewables, and investment from the perspective of people who see the industry changing overall and needing solutions to do it. So I think that's important. But I also think, there have long been like 100 vendors in the ETRM space. And if you actually dive down into what each vendor does, it's not the same. And I think the challenge of selling software into the enterprise energy market is that vendors are tempted to say they do everything in order to get a deal in the door. But the truth is, certain vendors only do some things. And I think the market itself hasn't really created that sort of discipline yet.
So, and I asked you a market question, but maybe it makes sense to even slow down and say, who's Molecule? Who are you? Who are you with? I'm sorry that I didn't do that in the beginning, but it may make sense for our audience to understand who you are, what company you are, and what do you guys do?
Yeah, Molecule is just a little company in Houston. Don't worry about it. So Molecule is an ETRM, proper ETRM company, started about 10 years ago. And we call ourselves the world's leading cloud native ETRM, CTRM. So, we didn't start in a niche. We didn't really start doing only one or two very specific things that aren't ETRM. We started as an ETRM vendor. Our goal was to be easy to use, turnkey, and up and running very quickly. And that has sort of been our ethos all the way through. And so, we're about 10 years old now, which is, teenage, maybe early 20-somethings for an ETRM company. And, as the super cycle starts to turn, we realize that we're one of the very small handful of up-and-coming vendors that sort of have the complexity required to be a real player in the market.
So what happened 10 years ago that you woke up one day and said, I want to start an ETRM company? What was the problem statement that wasn't getting met? Why did we need another ETRM vendor 10 years ago?
So 10 years ago, I got out of business school and I realized that this hunch I'd had for a long time, that enterprise software was expensive and terrible in a lot of ways was true. That enterprise users were going to need usability and were going to want usability, and I really wanted to provide it to them. That was really it. Everything else sort of came around it. We were at the beginning of a cloud boom. The tooling had gotten better and easier, and the idea of no or low cost implementation came later. But really, the focus was, hey, I want to build something where if somebody pays real money for this tooling, it's awesome. Our very early presentation was hooked up to a Connect where we were doing a Minority Report style demo, and the implication was, hey, this is what you should get if you pay that kind of money.
Okay, so turn the clock ahead 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So where are we today? What's relevant from the previous 10 years, and what's different going forward? Like what still differentiates you? Because there's plenty of people in the cloud today, right? So 10 years you were on the cutting edge. Cloud's not really bleeding edge. Perhaps in energy it is, because people are a little bit slower to adapt across the entire platform. But so what's special today?
Sure. So what's special today, and I think is either unique or very rare among ETRM vendors, is how we've used the cloud. So we use the cloud the way Google or a proper multi-tenant software company does, where we're able to reallocate capacity dynamically. We're able to release very quickly, usually every couple of weeks. We're able to monitor portfolios for errors and reach out to customers before the errors happen, or as they happen before the customer notices. So the ways in which we use the cloud are very different than what a lot of our competitors do. 10 years from now, I think that's going to be a lot different. I think that that'll be table stakes. And I think the real question is, how have we used new technologies to enable our customers to do things that they do every day now? How are we making dealing with PPAs easier? How are we using the blockchain to make settlements easy? There's a bunch of cool stuff cooking, and I think 10 years from now, we'll see the fruition of that. And hopefully, Molecule will be even more turnkey than it is today.
Fantastic, Samir. So that seems you were very early on the technology and the cloud technology from the very beginning. That's definitely quite impressive. But tell us a bit more about the real ETM and the capabilities. What does your ETM product do, and why is it maybe different from your point of view in terms of the competitors?
Yeah, sure. So our ETRM does largely what any other ETRM system does: ingests trades, computes position and P&L for a variety of different commodities, and produces reporting. We're adding, we do that for physical and financial trading. We're adding a bunch of back office features at the moment, and I think the last thing we don't have is scheduling and logistics features, but those should be coming soon. So, what our system does particularly well is to be turnkey. So we can get people up and running quickly because we have existing sets of master data, because we have built tools internally to make the up and running quickly happen. And really, we iterate on the product and are constantly releasing new features.
Okay, cool. So if I look now at some competitors that are out in the market a long time and not cloud native, they're also now in the cloud, but still it looks to me more like it's a monolithic solution that is in the cloud. And so nothing really changes in terms of their technology and the whole idea how an ETM works at the end. It just might cause a lot of costs to move it into the cloud for the client. So how does your system or your ETM solution look like? Is it more service-based? Can the client decide what features he wants to have or not? So how does it work? Is it an app store where the client can build new functionality? What's the concept behind it?
Right, exactly. I think the primary concept behind it is we have a set of packages, and once the client picks the package they want, the idea is that it ultimately ends up being turnkey for them. So we ensure that all those features get up and running, that they're validated, that they are producing the correct numbers, and then we turn it over to the customer after some validation. But some of the key elements of cloud technology that wouldn't be there if we were a monolithic app are things like, we know a lot of market data comes in right around the time of market close. Well, we're able to pre-warm Amazon workers to be ready for the close so that the moment the market data comes in, we can burn down the queue very quickly and then turn those workers back off because we don't want to burn the cost. So we're able to do that. We're able to have our load dynamically managed. So if a customer loads a load of 100,000 trades, right now, our system notices that and spins that up so that other customers don't have to deal with reduced capacity during that time. And then further, we have a set of open APIs that are normal and regular, RESTful JSON and CSV based APIs with which you can do pretty much anything you could do in the system. So customers are able to add features that they don't have. Let's say they have a particular type of credit reporting that we don't do. Well, it's easy to extract the data from the system, do the analysis, and display it.
Okay, cool. So you mentioned one of your USPs to be really quick and get your system going for the clients, which makes sense since it's cloud native. Is it possible for you to state in average how long it takes to, let's say, put a client productive, let's say medium-sized client with a medium-sized portfolio?
Our target is 90 days, and we're usually pretty close to that.
Okay, so setting up the whole portfolio structure, getting the deals in, also building potential interfaces to other systems. So everything included so that you can really, from first day on, be productive and capture trades, do the reporting, P&L, and so on.
So we, I think as we do implementations generally without additional charge, we have to draw a bright line around what that 90 days means.
Yeah.
And what that 90 days means to us is we get trades in and market data in, and we are producing consistently correct P&L and position reporting by the end of the 90-day period. Typically, we'll do interfaces later if they don't have an impact on trades and market data. We might do, the VAR will typically spin up a couple months later because it needs some history to prime, et cetera. So the bright line is positions and P&L in and consistently correct by the end of the 3-month period.
Okay, so you have a well-defined rapid deployment schedule, I think is what I would call that. Now, you're not a brand new startup. You've been around for some period of time. So have you formed a niche of who your customer base tend to be? Do you have, are they mostly gas traders? Are they, where do they tend to fall, and what size customers have been gravitating towards your platform so far? Who's your core customer base?
Yeah, sure. So we actually cover a broad swath of commodities, but over half of our customer base trades power, and a significant chunk of that is renewables. So we do quite well with power and renewables. And one of the things I like to say is that had we done nothing else right in 2012 other than to have chosen modern technology, we would be better at power than most, because there's simply that much more data, and new technology is able to process it faster. But we have a non-trivial customer base in natural gas, crude, refined products, chemicals, and people trading ags, softs, crypto, fixed income, and more.
So you've got the defined power base now, and you said in there that you do renewables as well. So what's changing, or what are you doing? Because probably renewables from 12 years ago to renewables today, or 10 years ago, is probably a bit different market.
Right.
So what changes? What have you been supporting, and where are you going in that space?
Right. So the very first thing we supported in renewables was RECs. So these are things issued by power grids in the U.S. to incentivize renewable generation, and on the consumption and retirement side to meet emissions needs. So we started simply by supporting the deal type, but we have gone sort of up and down market from there as well, by connecting to places that store recs and downloading them automatically, downloading the transactions automatically, and also then being able to show them being forecast, minted, and retired as well. And then we're looking to accelerate that next year into a broader offering for renewable credits to be auditable by our customers' auditing partners as well.
Cool. That all sounds like non-standard stuff, what you're talking about. And I think you mentioned it before already, PPAs. I would say that also falls into that categories on non-standard products. And what I can see in projects is that clients, or at the end their ETRM solutions, struggle to get, of course, the structure of PPAs and other non-standard products in, starting already with the deal attributes, but of course the payoff structure. And then it continues along the deal life cycle, so pricing the deals, risk management, until the settlement part at the end and the invoicing. So how flexible is your solution when it comes to having a non-standard deal that is not existing yet, and you need to make this available? Is this more like a change request that takes longer? And is that supported by you? Can the client do it on its own? How does it work?
Absolutely. So, for Molecule to be a turnkey solution and to be able to be updated every couple of weeks, in some cases, we actually exert a lot of control around the master data of the product so that it can be reliable and quick to deploy. So depending on, so we also support very granular deal types, so all the way down to the hourly level and sub-hourly level as well. So uploading a PPA, as soon as a customer has a product code that we've created for it, could be just uploading a spreadsheet with the deal attributes on it, and we're done. So the real question is around how long it takes us to build the product code, and are there any other new attributes about it? So typically product code turnaround is same day, maybe within an hour or two. Sometimes if there are more complicated deal structures that cannot fit in the very granular perspective that we're able to offer, then it might be a change request that takes a couple months to roll out, but that's not a common occurrence.
Yeah, same day, that's pretty fast, I have to say.
But, there was a funny story we had where, early on in our lifetime, before we had FX capabilities, a customer came to us and said, "Hey, we started trading in China last week. Why can't we get the deal in the system?" Well, you could have asked us, and we would have made it available for you, and we had them up and running very quickly. But clearly, you were planning this for weeks before.
Usually
trying to wedge it in the system.
Usually, it's good to reach out to the vendor. I agree. Yeah.
So it sounded like from your description that it's very important to Molecule to kind of fence off or define what's productized so you can consistently scale and bring things out. So how does that process work? So how is you sound like you're agile from what you described in your release schedule and things like that. So how are you coming up with new features, and how are those getting introduced in? So you gave an example. So they could have called you. They called you and they wanted this new feature. Would you build that for them, or would you productize that to roll to all your customers then?
Right. That's a great question. And that is the part of the challenge with a shared master data model is what is private and what is a full-blown feature. In general, we'll pick off a feature request if it makes sense for a broad swath of customers. But we will pick off modeling a new deal type if not having it makes the customer's portfolio not whole. So I mean, basically the reporting out of the system is only interesting and helpful if it reports on everything. And if a customer says, well, I just traded this new deal type, I need to wedge it in the system, the answer is no problem. We'll take care of it for you. We're good. So to the broader question about how do we figure out what features to add, a lot of times it's, hey, customer has this particular wrinkle, and yes, we've seen it before elsewhere. Can we please make this enhancement? Go for it. But then a lot of our other feature requests and improvement requests come through our product team from a variety of sources. They come from our security monitoring, they come from our performance monitoring, they come from the roadmap that we put together for the year every year, which is influenced by customer and sales requests. And then they come from direct customer tickets that say, hey, look, I really need this feature because X, Y, and Z. And, we might have said, sure, we'll figure it out. And we'll get it to you in X amount of time. So there's a number of different avenues that feature requests come from. And each cycle of our development process is about half new features, a quarter bugs, and a quarter other improvements.
Cool. Coming briefly back to the renewables, because that's something I think that is really driving the whole industry now. When you talked about how easy and quick it can be to make new deal structures available, which is definitely important, renewables again. But going further down the road, I mean, when it comes to evaluation, daily evaluation, P&L, risk numbers, it's not that tricky to have pricing models for those type of contracts. So what does Molecule offer there? Do you have some standard pricing engines for PPAs and in general renewable contracts that are not standard? And can the client also potentially develop own pricing models and integrate them into your solution?
Right. So that's a really good question. We have really two modules in our app that deal with valuation and P&L. One is what we call our trades module, which is the high volume, granular, standardized engine, and that's the thing that has a swap model and a forward model and several different option models, et cetera. And the vast majority of PPAs could be decomposed into hourly swaps or something like that. So typically there isn't really a problem pricing those things. In cases where there is a lot more structure that, maybe you want to use a lattice or something like that to value something, we have our assets module, which is a placeholder for systems that do external valuation of some complex assets. So we've seen people do power plants, gas storage, solar farms, dairy farms within our assets module. And then in that case, the customer can provide their own model, or we work with partners like Sequant who provide models that can link in with Molecule and provide scenario analysis back.
Cool. What about position report and position monitoring, not just for non-standard renewable contracts, but I think what we can see as a general development is that you want to see as a trader in intraday markets your position very, very soon and very quick. You mentioned there are thousands of trades made in short-term trading. You want to see your position. So how does Molecule overcome this issue?
With a huge amount of horizontal capacity, right? So what happens when you book a trade in Molecule is we immediately write the reporting row for every day, for the first day of the trade's life, and then for every day afterwards. And so the position is there now, and you can immediately report on it by saying, okay, well, what's my position for everything today? So we prioritize writing today's reporting data to be as instant as possible, and we delay writing future data, but we generally do it throughout the rest of the day, such that it's available first thing the next morning, first thing the morning after. It's always available afterwards. So unlike other systems which compute position data when a report is run, we do not. We write it in granular form with all the 200 different attributes of what we calculate relate to that to a table such that it can be reported on in any way, shape, or form nearly instantly.
Okay, so does that mean that your position module is event-based? So whenever there is a new event like a new trade, because I think that's very important for traders
Mhm.
to see it right away in your position overview.
That's right. It's
Okay,
event-based, as is everything in the system, including the VAR. So the Monte Carlo VAR reruns every time position changes.
okay, cool.
So you mentioned modules. So you mentioned cloud. So help me understand what you mean by modules. What does that mean to you? And do people buy a stock system with core modules? Do I a la carte pick what my company needs? How does this all work with Molecule?
Sure. So when I talk about modules, I'm really talking from a product perspective of primary pieces of functionality. Um, and so as to not provide customers with a confusing menu of all, say, I don't know, 500 different features that we offer, we've combined most of those into packages. So we have a small package for hedge funds with X amount of volume per day. We have our core package, which hits most people, and then we have our enterprise package, which hits Fortune 1000 type companies. And within those, we have a very small menu of adders that you can add. So these are generally the way we think of, hey, this thing needs to be line itemed is, does this particular feature have a lot of cost associated to delivering it and maintaining it and monitoring it correctly? Then it might need to be line itemed outside a package. Or do people really need to know about this feature? And so we want to highlight it as well. So for example, our VAR engine takes some priming, takes some monitoring, and tuning. And so it's not available on our low end package. It's available for folks who are on our medium package and up. So basically, we like to present a simple menu of 3 to 5 different things that people can choose from, as opposed to picking specific modules.
Cool. You mentioned one thing in that context, which is very important when you're completely cloud native. I mean, open APIs and interfacing. I mean, some clients might still have some solutions on premise, and then they need to connect, of course, to your solution using API technology. But that's often something, as you mentioned also, that you build afterwards, and that's a journey. That's not something you build from one day to the other. That can
Right.
be quite cumbersome. So is that something where you would support the client, not just in implementing maybe interfaces whatsoever, but also before on a conceptual level and maybe also architectural design level? Do you work closely together with the client there, or is that usually left with the client?
So oftentimes we work really closely with the client, sometimes actually developing the point solution with them in order to get them up and running and happy. And another time simply providing support for the API. So it really depends. Generally, our larger customers see the API docs and say, yep, I understand what those are. We're good. And the smaller ones might say, yeah, that's a little much for me. Can you actually make me something that does this? And we're happy to do so. But one of the nice things about our APIs is that once we publish them as stable, we treat them as stable so that we are able to make changes behind the scenes as long as the interface stays the same.
So you've got well-defined APIs from what I heard. That to me would also mean that you could have a partner ecosystem in place.
Mm-hmm.
Now, 10 years of age, I expect that you're not brand new. That does this exist? And tell me a little bit about your ecosystem.
Absolutely. So until last year, our ecosystem was relatively informal. We had a couple of vendors that were directly integrated, not even through our APIs, but through custom code to Molecule, market data vendors, and exchanges, etc. This year, really new for this year, has been the beginning of our partner ecosystem, where we're working together with partners to create rich functionality for for end users. And a great example, and one of the first examples of this, is Fidectis, where we are working to provide European and North American ability to do confirms and or invoicing through a much better solution than we could provide. And so that's that. So Fidectis is one of the first. We have similar partnerships with Sequant and others that are getting ready to be announced soon.
Okay, cool. Touching the topic automation, I mean, we have already got a bit of an insight that your solution is completely event-based.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, I think, the basis for a high level of automation. Especially when we look into short-term trading, this is very, very important. But maybe let's change a bit into the topic automatic trading or algo trading, which is also more and more coming up and rising since liquidity is increasing in the short-term trading, but also on the curve. Organizations looking into strategies that they can build to squeeze out even more money. So how do you see this development? Do you see it in a different way that it's really on the rise? And what is your answer to that as Molecule?
So I think it depends on the continent. In North America, we don't see a huge rise in algo trading. The algo trading shops, in a lot of cases, are limited to the giant hedge funds that typically use their own proprietary software to do this. But we are definitely seeing it in Europe and in relation to European exchanges. I think we're ideally set up for that because our first orientation for a customer is to be connected on a feed and downloading transactions as they happen. So it's really no skin off our teeth to be able to support them. I think the only real question is what kind of load will they bring with them, and how can we make sure to anticipate it correctly and make sure our workers are pre-warmed when they need to be and ready to go when they need to be. And so, our tech scales, and as we start to see more and more of these algo trading shops, I think there's a real question that they need to be able to answer internally as to, hey, do we need to build our own proprietary systems to do this, or maybe we use a turnkey solution to make this problem go away?
Right, that's a very good topic, I think. Some are looking into building their own algo development framework, and that's by far not something you build overnight. You need a backtesting framework, you need a proper execution, you need a monitoring, you need risk measures in place. So that's a lot to build. How do you see that development in terms of your product? Are you planning to build modules that maybe provide some of those functionality, like risk management of algo strategies, the execution maybe even, or backtesting framework? Because I think you sit on a lot of data, so you can leverage on that as well.
So we have a few large milestone features that we need to roll out in order to make that more reasonable, right? I think execution is a large and expensive thing. You've got to ensure low latency. You've got to, you probably also have to insure the low latency with insurance contracts. And you need the customer to have quick access to the data that they use to make those algorithmic decisions. And perhaps RESTful APIs aren't even enough for that. And so we have some things on our roadmap for next year to be able to allow customers to mine their data at an even more granular and fast level using any tools they want. And so I think that's an important stepping stone to supporting algo trading and the like, which to me is sort of inevitable in the long run as we start to support different commodity and asset classes.
Okay, but that sound, as I understand correctly, but please correct me, that sounds more like a data analytics platform or module as a basis that can be then used and utilized for algo development activities.
That's exactly right, and that's on our roadmap for next year.
Okay.
So we've talked about cloud, we've talked about automation now, we've talked about your user group. I guess a couple things. What is your support model like? How do you support your customers? So do you have consultants? You said you work very closely with them. In fact, almost built modules with them. So describe the user journey from a support point of view for your customer.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a fairly unique support model in that our support people are the same people who are doing the implementations for our customers. So these aren't sort of level one support. Hey, please go ahead and reset my password sort of thing. That can be done on screen and doesn't really need any help doing. These are folks who can answer a question like, hey, my P&L is wrong on this particular chemicals transaction, and I don't know why. Can you please go figure it out and let me know? Thanks, bye. And so these are people with some context, the ability to understand what the customer really needs, and more. So these guys are available during our customers' business hours. And they take tickets via phone, email, and in-app chat, and are able to respond fairly quickly. So most tickets are responded to within an hour, and lower priority tickets may take a little bit longer. So that's one important part of our support model, is that our implementations and our support are done by the same people. Another important part of our support model is what we call ZCDS. So it's our internal term for what we call zero customer discovered surprises. It's inspired by Six Sigma. And the idea is that if we have an issue that a customer found with the software that we didn't notify them about first, then we missed something. And our goal is to have less than 5 of those across all of our customers every month. And so we have a huge amount of monitoring that goes into making sure we meet our target, because there are people on our team who are financially compensated by meeting our goal. So there's a huge amount of monitoring that goes into that, and a fair amount of reaching out proactively to customers to say, hey, our monitoring ran this morning, saw this thing with your portfolio, looks weird, fixed it, just thought you want to know.
So fantastic. So support seems to work pretty actively. So you're actively monitoring all the services, and I understood you stepping in once you discovered something that should not run as it is. But coming back to the support model, is there an option for your clients to choose a certain support model, like having only support during regular working hours, or is the premium support? How does it work?
Right. Typically, our clients want support only during normal hours or normal working hours. However, if they need it during other hours, we're happy to work with them to provide a different support model. Also, a big thrust of our efforts late this year and through next year is having closer relationships with SIs and building out tooling for SIs to be able to provide first line support to our customers as well.
We've gone through kind of your product. We've gone through your support model. Has the way you price your system changed a bit in the 10 years? Is there trends changing of how that happens today in the market and how you're going to market?
It has changed significantly. So early on, we thought we would price per user per month. And well, as it turns out, that created an incentive to reduce the number of users on the platform, and created upward negative incentive to share usernames across users. I remember early on, once we got a support ticket from somebody who was using somebody else's username on our platform, and I thought, hey, wait a second, this model is all wrong at this point. We want the adoption, but we have a certain minimum amount we need to cover our costs as well. So early on, we switched to a package pricing model where we differentiate based on things that create cost or needs for our customers. So the smallest of customers, don't typically need VAR and don't typically need a lot of setup as well, because they're using only they're trading only on exchanges, and setting them up can be as easy as flipping a couple switches and entering a couple of credentials, and sort of done. On the medium and larger customers, those will be people who need support for bilateral trading, custom mapping to curves that they provide, the VAR, the probably extensive support options, maybe an SLA, things like that, things that drive cost and or difficulty for our team. So the package pricing seems to work well. We definitely get some requests at times to do a fully a la carte offering, but our perspective is that doesn't really work so well for either us or our customers.
So, got pricing models. Now, you mentioned at the beginning of the show, you said you're a company in Houston. So your install base, where does your install base tend to sit? Is it North American centric? Are you a global install base? Where does that?
So we are a global install base, although the vast majority of our customers are North America today.
So what special needs or what difference? So from the North American to the EMEA market, what kind of things do you need to do different? What's different between the markets? What do you offer different from your customer's point of view?
Man, I really don't know the answer to that question. I think that's something that we're honestly learning about, and we're looking for customers to partner with, to help us surmount the needs. From what we're able to put together, most of what we do should cover European markets, but there's a lot to learn, and we love to learn.
So I think that we're about out of new questions. We're going to switch into the speed round, I think.
Okay,
what
sure.
I want to do when I kick back into is give you a moment to kind of put your thoughts together and give a thing at the end. So probably have you do that, and then we'll go into the speed round and wrap up the show. Okay? So I think as we approach time, before we go into the speed round, Samir, what I'd love to have you do is, we've been all over the place. Maybe just give us, a concise answer of why our listeners would want to consider Molecule, and put it all together in one concise thought, since we've been jumping around for the last 45 minutes here. So go ahead and share your idea.
Absolutely. So Molecule is the only modern cloud native ETRM that's focused on the customer, gets up and running quickly, and is so focused on reliability to the degree that we're proactively reaching out to customers.
So just the last question, because you sparked it in your statement. Do you have an SLA that stands behind that reliability then that stands out for Molecule?
We have published, we have externally published uptime information, and you can see it on our status page at any time. But our uptime over the last couple of years during business days has been 99.98 or 97, pretty significant, pretty consistently over the last few years. So almost 4 nines.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So what we're going to do now is we're going to switch gears, and we're going to go into our speed round. It's going to be 10 questions that we ask. We've asked every vendor that's participated on the ETRM mini-series these same questions. We're going to round robin between Martin and myself. So I will start out with the first question, and these are just short answers. Just say what comes to mind. Will the number of vendors for ETRM solutions shrink or expand in the future, in your opinion?
Both. I think the legacy weaker vendors might shake themselves out, but I think the attractiveness of the energy trading space is growing, and I expect to see new entrants.
Cool. So having in mind that algo trading is on the rise, at least as you mentioned in Europe, how many deals per minute must a modern ETRM system today be capable to import?
Depends on the commodity.
Let's
But
say
I
power.
would say I would say between 1,000 and 10,000 a minute.
Okay, cool.
All right. So, what commodity types and energy types are you offering, and which ones do you consider your best strengths?
So we are strongest in power and renewables, but we have customers across power and renewables, natural gas, crude oil, refined products, chemicals, ags, softs, metals, fixed income, and crypto.
Cool. Do you offer a real-time position management module, and how many trades can you process with this?
We absolutely do. All of our position management is real time or near real time, and you know, our largest accounts bring in up to 10,000 trades a day.
All right. So, do you have an automated workflow for straight-through processing?
Yeah, it's a funny term for us, and we often have to ask customers what they mean by straight through processing because that's just how Molecule was designed. Yes, absolutely, and there are no buttons to press for it.
Thank you.
All right. Can your ETRM solution price Asian power options?
Yes.
Are your offerings, or are you offering a full integration and implementation service for your ETRM system?
Typically, we offer a full implementation service to get position and P&L up and running. Integration can sometimes be handled by us and sometimes be handled by an SI.
All right. From your point of view, what is the biggest threat for third-party ETRM vendors, if there is one?
I think the biggest threat is considering ETRM and the features that have gone before to be the standard. The industry is changing and needs are changing, and we have to be able to, skate to where the puck will be.
All right. I'll always take a hockey reference. So, how does your licensing model work today, and is it going to change in the future?
So today we have 3 primary packages that help customers figure out where they're going to be. They have standard pricing for each. We have a few package adders, and we plan to be adding a few more over the coming year.
All right. Last question. Are you offering an API, and what is the technology behind it?
We absolutely offer an API and have for a number of years. Our documentation is available to our customers, and it's a normal RESTful JSON and CSV API in that pretty much everything produces a JSON or CSV result.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much for going through the 10 questions rounds with us. I think that it's a good tell when we hear all the vendors answer the same questions. It's been an informative journey for me on today's call. I appreciate hearing about Molecule and what you're doing. So thank you for being our guest on the ETRM mini-series. We are going to culminate this series for those that are listening to it. Highlight is for eWorld, where we're going to be at eWorld as well. But to get more information about Molecule or any of the vendors, please go to the Insider's Guide to Energy website. And each episode, there will be links that you can click to take you to the Molecule page and find out more from the vendor. Samir, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Samir.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, absolutely.
For our audience, please tune in. If you like the ETRM miniseries, share it with your colleagues. Subscribe, follow us on LinkedIn to find out more, to hear about what all the other ETRM vendors are also saying. You want to hear the other episodes as well. Have a great time, and we'll talk to you soon.